Hey guys, it's Brandon Woolum hanging out here in Nashville today with Whey Jennings. How are you, my man?
Doing good, man. How you doing?
Good. So we're here today to talk about a new album that'll be out on March 27th. Could be out right now, depending on when you're seeing this.
Yeah, man.
We're going to talk about that here in just a few. But first, people watching this on GodTube, maybe their first exposure to Whey. So let's
Yeah.
start there. A little bit of the story. We don't have to go into super detail, but a little bit about Whey Jennings.
Well, there's been two of me in my life, I guess. I went down a pretty dark path for quite a few years. And then about 7 years ago, I got clean and sober. And I decided to give my life to God. And life has been a lot better since then. I've gotten married. My wife just gave birth to our second daughter since our marriage. We have 7 kids together.
Wow.
And our life has just been blessing after blessing ever since then. Yeah.
Yeah, the new album, Baptized by Fire, will be out on the 27th, like we talked about. Let's talk about how this stage of life influenced likely what we're going to hear on this project, I'm guessing.
Well, yeah. Just about any one of my projects have to do with where I'm at that period of time. I've never been able to just like make up stories and put them on an album. I pretty much live it, create a song out of it, and then put it on an album. And this album here is probably the most vulnerable I've ever been in my life when it comes to music, because it's something completely different than I've ever done. I have a lot of faith-based music on this album. I have a lot of life-based music on this album. I guess on the press release, what I said is this album's about the human condition and all the way around, you know what I mean? From the beginning to where I'm at today. So I hope everybody enjoys it. It's something I put my heart into.
Yeah, this one here, a lot of this is going to be written from a completely different mindset. As you talked about, the passed away had some addiction issues. This one here, you're clean. How does that mindset going into these writing sessions change what we're hearing?
Well, it's a lot more pure, man. I want to put out music that my family can go back and listen to. You know what I mean? That I won't feel bad about them listening to. I put out a lot of music back in the day that was from my wilder times, and now looking back, thinking about my kids getting hold of that music, I don't want to be leading people down the wrong path. I always wanted to be the partier and the outlaw back in the day, but nowadays I just want to be a good, strong man of God who's a good husband and a good father, and who puts out music that families can listen to and maybe resonate with. I like the person I am today a lot better than the person I was. A lot of people tell me who I was before was great too, but in my heart of hearts and in my soul, I know that the decisions I were making back then aren't decisions I would make today. So I really hope people get to know the real me through this album.
Yeah. As people go down this track listing, they're going to see some names they may not recognize, but they're going to know songs that these folks wrote. You got Jim Moose Brown on there and so many big names. Talk about what these guys bring to the table, these major Nashville songwriters.
Oh man, it's really amazing. Like writing with Jim Moose Brown, me and David went over to his house, his studio, and we sat down. We wrote actually the first song on the album and the last song on the album. And the last song is the title track, Baptized by Fire. And we were sitting there writing these songs, and Moose just got up and left the room. And I was like, uh-oh, he's not liking this writing session at all. So, I started kind of walking out the door, and I seen him over there inside of his studio just pacing back and forth, going through his head and just coming up with lyrics, man. He come back in and he said, how about this? And I was just like blown away. I was like, to think that a name that big would be that down to earth and that humble, it was not something I was expecting. I went in there very nervous, and I feel like I left out of there with a new friend, And when things like that happen, it's really a huge blessing, because you get these things in your head, like these people who have been places and done things are going to be bigger than you and going to be like cast this shadow over you or something. It's like, so when you meet people like this and you realize that they're just humans too, and they probably feel the same way about you as you do them, and it was really a great experience in my life. And he wasn't the only one. Tyler Booth is a good friend of mine, man. We sat down and we wrote some really cool songs together too. And David Wade, he brought all of this about. I met most of the people I write with through him. And I also got another song on the album called "Damned If I Stay," and it's a song that I do with Karen Waldrop, and it's a duet, and it's another song about a true true part of life, man. Sometimes relationships just don't work out, you know. It's just, but that's the next thing we're putting out. And that's one thing that worried me about this album. There's just so many things on it. Like, people wanted me to put out a gospel album. And I'm like, okay, I want to be able to stay in the country music setting and be true to me and be true to my faith and not be, you know, put over here in this genre where everybody who's listening to it's already saved. You know what I mean? It's already on the right path and doing the thing, you know. I want to be able to help people get over here. You know what I mean? I want to be somewhat of a gateway, you know what I mean? I want people to hear my music that need to hear it. People like I was, people like I've somewhat continue to be, you know what I mean? People who struggle and wrestle with God, you know? Because that's one of the main prayers I've ever said is, Lord, I believe, please help my disbelief. You know what I mean? Because belief ain't always easy, man. It's just not. And it's hard. And it's, you always find this little voice in the back of your head telling you, this ain't real, this ain't true, you can better chalk it up, just walk away, go over here and do this. And it's like, you got to fight that. You know what I mean? Because I know in my heart of hearts that Jesus is real and he's been working in my life, because I'm a true testament of it. You know, my life would not be what it is today if I didn't have that belief. And, you know, I want to put that in my music, but I also want to put the other parts of life in my music too. I don't want to just shine it up, polish it, and say, look at this shiny thing.
Yeah.
You know, I want to say, look at this tattered, beat up, lopsided thing that is my life. And look at this shiny spot right here who held it all together, you know? And that's what life really is, you know? It's not always a bed of roses. If you get saved, life is going to be wonderful, but it's still going to be hard. It's not like it's going to turn into this big, beautiful, shining white light of a life with no problems ever happening in your life again. You still got things you got to face. You still got problems you're going to have to take care of in your life. But you'll be more grounded. You'll have more belief in God, knowing that he's going to pull you through this. And you'll be able to face it better. And that's what God has done for me. He's given me the ability to face my life without that, you know, just nervousness, that scared, that, you know, that horrible feeling that everything's just going to fall apart, you know? You just got to have faith, move forward, and put out music that means something to you in your heart and that does the work you're supposed to be doing in life, you know?
Yeah, we were talking about some of those iconic songwriters and big names you worked with. You've also been carrying an iconic name your entire life, your entire music career with your family's heritage. When people hear Whey Jennings in this, even if they don't know you, they're probably going to assume that you are related to Waylon Jennings. How has been living with that and trying to carve your own path, but also pay respects to your family's heritage? How is all that intertwined? How do you balance that?
Well, you know, I just try to be myself, man. You know, there was a lot of time in my life when I was younger, like when I started my career. I had this whole catalog of my grandfather's music that was already in my head, because since I was a young man, I've always been a huge Waylon fan. You know what I mean? He may have been my grandfather, but that's some great music, you know? So I've always loved it. It resonated well with me. And that's how I started my career. I went out and I started singing my grandfather's songs, and some Skinner and some Seeger and other songs that I had heard in my parents' record collections, you know? And over time, and for some reason, I had it in my head that that's what I needed to be. I needed to be a replica of my grandfather. And it's like, over time, I realized that nobody's going to be a replica of anybody, ever. You know what I mean? I needed to be me. So I started writing my own songs, and I started adding them to my set list, and, you know, slowly taking my grandfather's music out and putting mine in. But I'll always pay homage to my grandfather. You know what I mean? Me and him do have a lot in common. We have a lot of things that we don't have in common. Somebody told me the other day, I was doing a show with George A. Jones and Dean Miller out in Virginia. And Miss Donna that was running the show, she looked at me and she said, "You have a very distinct look. You got this ZZ Top, Hank Jr. look." I was like, man, I'm just trying to be me, you know? I'm just trying to be the best me I possibly can. But there's a lot of things like this hat is going to remind people of my grandfather. The fact that I wear boots is going to remind people of my grandfather. The fact that I have a beard of any kind is going to remind people of my grandfather. And the fact that my voice has overtones of my grandfather's voice in it, you know. But I'm not going to stop wearing boots because my grandfather wore them. I'm not going to stop wearing this hat because my grandfather wore a hat. You know, I'm going to be who I am. And there's going to be similarities between me and my grandfather. And there's going to be a whole lot of me in there. And these days, I noticed one thing, that show I was just talking about. I was hired to come out there and sing a few of my grandfather's songs. And Georgette did some of her dad and her mother's songs. And Dean did some of his dad's songs. And I found that a lot of people that came to that show got upset with me because I didn't do any of my own songs. And while I don't like to upset people, you have no idea how good that made me feel, knowing that people were there to hear my songs. And I feel bad that I didn't play any, but my music, I feel like, is starting to become heard, like, more and more, because it's, I didn't think I'd ever be able to break out of that shadow, you know what I mean? But I'm slowly creeping out of it, I feel, you know, because I feel like I put out a couple good albums, and I'm about to drop one this week, just probably the best thing I've ever done. And the guy who just left here with me, West Ship, me and him have written a lot of good songs together. We've been through a lot of the same things in our lives, and he's been a blessing in my life too. Because writing music ain't easy. It's true life experiences. And if you ever feel like you doubt yourself about what you're writing, you know, two heads are always better than one, you know. I really like writing with other people because we can, you know, tune it in and figure things out. But back to your question about living in the shadow of my grandfather. You know, that's a place where I was born. That's a place where I'll probably continue to be. But, you know, I'm going to cast my own shadow one of these days. Maybe my kids will have the same problem I did, you know. It's not a problem. It's a blessing. I love my grandfather and I love my family. And I'm not the only one in my family doing it, you know. I got
There's
an
quite
uncle.
a few of you Jennings out there.
My Uncle Shooter, he's out there producing some great music. He's been out there, you know, touring for many, many years. My cousin Struggle, he just put out a new album called Last Name. And man, I tell you what, that's some of the best music I've heard out of him. It's really good. Really, really good. And the videos that they shot were like super cinematic. And that was great. But you know, I feel like God's been working his way through my family. Our family has not always had the easiest ride. You know, I mean, we've made a few mistakes along the way. We've come across some, you know, really big obstacles, and we've figured our way through them. You know, I feel like we're all in a good space, not only in our heads but our hearts. And I feel like the world has got a lot to see out of the Jennings family in the near future, and I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and it kind of all starts this Friday for you, the 27th, when people get to go down this track listing and listen to some of these songs that you've talked about being so emotional and personal for you. What's that track you want them to go back and maybe give a few listens to? Not just kind of skim it. Listen to these lyrics deep because they mean so much to you and may mean so much to this person.
Well, first of all, this album, when I put it together, it was one thing. And that's the part that bothers me about the music industry is you got to promote singles. You know, I mean, you got to put out the best songs for everybody to hear to get people to listen to your album. But when you do that, you have to put them out in a different order than you intended them to be heard. You know what I mean? So what I ask for everybody to do is, if you're going to listen to this album at least one time, start it at track 1 and run it clean through 12 and listen to it as one thing, because then you'll understand me a little bit better. But as far as the strongest song, in my opinion, as an artist, like, it's probably not going to be the strongest as the consumer end of it, but as an artist, my biggest accomplishment in writing has been a song called I'll See You Soon. Because my wife, she was in I've spoken about this already, but my wife is the love of my life. And I want that song to be the ending to our love story, you know, because it's a beautiful song. It really is.
Yeah, that's about. You talked about the kids you have with your wife. How do you balance that part too? You talked 7 kids. You're out here. You've got a schedule this year that's about 3 different columns of a show poster. A lot of dates. How do you balance all that?
Well, it's not easy, man. I tell you. Well, I usually take off January and spend time with my family throughout January. This year, I took off January, part of March, because I had a daughter who was just born in February, and I wanted to be at home for a little while. And then at the end of April, we left a little time open too, because my guitar player, his wife's giving birth to a baby, Matter of fact, she just went into labor the other day, and they have a beautiful baby girl. And you just got to take time out, you know what I mean? Not get greedy, not book 300 dates a year, you know. You got to, I'm booking about 70 dates this year, and I'm taking a week every other month off or so to spend time with my family. Because one thing I do want to be is a very present father, you know. It's the hardest thing in the world is leaving your family behind and going to do music. But you got to support your family, man. And this is the life that God laid out for me, you know. It's the only thing I've ever been good at, and it's the only thing I'm ever going to do again until God gives me something else that, here, try this instead, and then I might try that. But for right now, music is where it's at. You know?
For somebody that's watching this, especially maybe somebody that lives a Christian faith and maybe is ashamed to go tell people what's going on in the background of their life, somebody that's struggling with some of the same struggles that you dealt with, what do you tell that person?
Man, give it to God and believe with all your heart. That's what you need to do. You know, the truth is key. You got to be honest with yourself and the people around you. You got to have integrity, and that's doing the right thing when nobody's looking. It's much better when you can wake up in the morning and not have to tell a lie to cover the lie you told yesterday. You know, you just got to be super honest, super real with yourself. If you're going through something, don't lie to yourself and tell you're not yourself because you're not going through it. Figure out what it is and, you know, straighten it out. And break open the Bible, man, and read a little bit of scripture. Me and my wife started a 1-year Bible this year, you know, and it's 4 different books each morning. We do 1 in the morning and 3 at night. And after a year, you will have read through the whole Bible. And that's what we've done. You know, we've started, you know, diving into scripture and making it a huge part of our life, you know. Not only our lives, but our children's lives and our community's lives. You know, we're a big part of the church we're in, and my wife has got like this whole group of moms that there's just like this unit now, and all of our kids hang out, and it's turned into this big beautiful thing, and it's been all because of God. You know, he's really worked in your life when you let him. If you don't let him, he won't.
Yeah.
You know, but if you let him, he'll work in your life, and you'll see it. It'll be very apparent that he's working in your life.
Yeah, love it. You can hear some of these stories in audio form, song form, starting this Friday, but could be out already because the algorithm, who knows when they'll throw this at you. March 27th is when the album came out, Baptized by Fire from Whey Jennings.